You know someone is going through a tough time, so you reach out. But instead of leaning on you, they vanish. Their texts go unanswered, calls ring through to voicemail, and the silence stretches for days or even months. It is easy to view this silence as a personal slight. We often assume the person is being selfish or that they are choosing to ignore our support. Psychological research suggests a different reality happening behind the screen. Going completely dark is rarely a social choice. When the brain is subjected to extreme emotional overload, it triggers a strict, involuntary neurological lockdown. To understand why a friend suddenly drops off the map, we have to look past the unanswered texts and examine the specific shutdown sequence the mind initiates to survive. Phase 1 is the alarm. Deep inside the nervous system, the threat response mechanisms struggle to distinguish between a physical attack and severe emotional stress. Both trigger the same biological sirens. This forces the brain into survival mode. It narrows attention, shutting down outward social connections to focus entirely on inward emotional protection. The person instinctively hunkers down, blocking out outside demands until the perceived danger passes. This leads to phase 2. Because the brain is heavily fortified, any social interaction is calculated as a liability, a potential breach in the perimeter. People undergoing acute stress desperately fear emotional exposure. To answer a text or meet for coffee means risking others seeing them failing, confused, or entirely mentally exhausted. For individuals with strong patterns of self-reliance, there is an added layer of dread, the belief that their struggles will become an unmanageable burden to those around them. The initial act of ghosting is the construction of a defensive wall. The nervous system determines that psychological distance is safer than the risk of being emotionally seen. Once the perimeter is established, the brain moves to phase 3, environmental lockdown. When a crisis feels unpredictable, an overwhelmed mind scrambles to find any source of rigid control. Complete isolation provides that control. It guarantees zero external expectations, removes the pressure to explain complex feelings, and radically reduces incoming mental stimulation. But running this defensive protocol is expensive, pushing the brain into total system depletion. Chronic stress consumes massive cognitive energy. When that tank hits empty, simple daily tasks turn into monumental hurdles. Checking a voicemail or typing a reply becomes physically exhausting. At this point, the person is not consciously ignoring their phone. They genuinely lack the microscopic amount of emotional fuel required to maintain a conversation. Prolonged distress bankrupts the brain's internal energy economy, making silence a physiological inevitability. Look back at that stack of unread notifications. With the mechanics of the mind in view, the picture changes. This radio silence is the outward symptom of a mind running on fumes, fighting invisible battles just to stay afloat. Recognizing these internal mechanics allows patience to settle in, neutralizing the sting of perceived rejection. When someone drops out of sight during a hard time, it is a frantic grab for psychological safety. It says almost nothing about how much they value the relationship. When the cognitive load is this heavy, a sudden disappearance is a final, desperate act of human survival.